It began on the planet Kryvan 9, where the ground cracked with fire and the skies thundered without mercy. The allied forces of the human colonies were supposed to stay out of this war. It was not their fight. But when the Dulcari Empire unleashed its beasts upon the border worlds, Earth could no longer stay silent. Commander Jace Thorn had no idea what waited for him beyond the mountains of smoke. He was only meant to retrieve survivors. No one told him the last survivor was an alien girl with ears like a fox, blood running down her armor, and eyes that glowed in the darkness. She had a name, but no one on his coms could pronounce it. She was the warlord's daughter, believed to be killed in the first wave. But she was alive, and not just alive, she was fighting, bleeding, barely breathing. Yet when Jace found her surrounded by enemy drones, she still held a blade in her hand. He should have left her there. Protocol said leave non-human combatants. Orders said do not engage unless fired upon. But she was looking at him with eyes full of fear, not rage. She reached out to him, not to fight, but to beg. And Jace Thorn had never been good at following the rules. He lifted her over his shoulder as plasma shots rained from the cliffs above. His team screamed through the headset to pull back. Air support was 5 minutes away. They wouldn't survive. 5 seconds unless they moved now. But Jace did not drop her. She clung to him, her breathing weak and shallow. Her blood stained his armor. The weight slowed him down. The enemy could see him. A tall human carrying a dying alien girl was a perfect target. Yet still, Jace kept running toward the extraction point. They reached the ridge, just as the sky cracked open with a shockwave. The enemy unleashed a beast 20 feet tall with molten armor and razored limbs. The girl in Jace's arms stirred, whispering something in her language. Jace didn't understand her words, but he knew what she meant. She wanted to be put down. She wanted to fight. He ignored her. He tightened his grip and dove behind cover. The rest of his squad had already left. The evac shuttle had lifted off 2 minutes early. There was no one coming back for them. He was alone now, one human, one wounded alien girl, and the monster coming closer with every breath. Jace didn't curse. He didn't panic. He just looked at her again and nodded. She looked back at him, confused. Then she saw his eyes. They were calm. Not afraid, not angry. Just steady. Like someone who had already decided he would die standing, but never alone. That was when she reached toward his chest and pressed something into his armor. A small black crystal, still warm from her body. It shimmered faintly. She mouthed one word. Sathara. It meant shield in her tongue. Jace didn't know it yet, but the moment she gave him that stone, everything changed. Not just for him. Not just for her. But for the entire war. Asterisk smoke choked the air as Jace moved from boulder to boulder, holding her tight against his chest. Her body was limp now, but her eyes stayed open, watching him. The crystal she gave him pulsed faintly inside his armor. He didn't know what it was, but he trusted the way she gave it to him. He reached an old bunker entrance half buried in rubble. With one hand gripping his weapon and the other holding her close, he kicked open the metal hatch and stumbled inside. The corridor was dark, lit only by the flickering lights of emergency backup power. Dust filled his throat, but the walls held. For now, the girl winced, a small sound escaping her lips. Jace lowered her onto a bench, careful not to touch the deep wound across her ribs. He reached for his med kit and poured a sealant over the worst of it. She didn't scream. She just stared at him, like she couldn't believe he was still there. Most soldiers would have run. Even his own unit had done what the mission required and nothing more. But Jace had never been good at leaving people behind. Even if they weren't people by military definition. Even if the high command didn't consider her life worth saving. She tried to sit up, her breath shallow. Her mouth moved, but her language was strange, all breath and rhythm. Then, suddenly, a sharp pulse of light flickered from the stone she gave him. It spread through the room, and Jace flinched, but the energy didn't hurt. Instead, it made his vision shimmer. And then he understood her. "You don't know what you've done," she said, her voice finally clear in his mind. Not through ears, but inside his thoughts. "They'll come for you. My father will not allow this disobedience. Not from you, not from me." Jace wiped the blood from her face. "You're still alive. That's what matters right now," he said calmly. He handed her a water pack, and she drank slowly, never breaking eye contact. She looked strong again, though he knew it was only for a moment. "I'm not just a soldier," she whispered. "I was supposed to die with honor. I was left behind on purpose. The warlords must not show weakness. If I survive, it will break." "The ancient vow, then let it break," Jace said. "I didn't save you for politics. I saved you because no one deserves to die alone." The bunker door shook as a deep thud echoed through the mountain. The beast had followed their scent. Its claws scraped along the outside wall, sniffing for them. Jace stood, rifle ready. He activated the bunker's old defense field, which shimmered faintly around the entry tunnel. It would not last long. She tried to stand beside him, but her legs trembled. Jace caught her before she fell. "You don't need to fight," he said. "I do," she answered. "You carry this Athara. It is not just a shield. It's a bondstone. You took it freely. You protected me with your life. That makes you my blade kin." Jace raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," she said, touching her forehead to his chest, "if you die, I must die with you. And if I live, your enemies become mine. Until I return the bondstone, or until one of us falls." Outside, another roar shook the walls. The ceiling cracked. The beast had found the opening. Jace handed her a second pistol, knowing she barely had strength to lift it, but he respected the warrior in her eyes. The power flickered again. The lights went dark. Only the faint blue glow of the crystal lit their faces now. Jace gritted his teeth as the beast's steps grew louder. He turned to her and said, "What's your name?" She gave it, but it was too complex for him to repeat. So she added, "Call me Kale. It means Firehope." "All right, Kale, let's give them something to fear," Jace said with a tight nod. As the metal door burst inward and dust flew in all directions, Jace didn't run. He stepped forward, shielding her with his body, eyes fixed on the nightmare creature crawling in. It stopped for a second, its eyes meeting his, confused by the glow of the bondstone. Kale raised her hand, the crystal shining brighter. For a brief second, the air cracked with power. Something ancient awakened inside her, something even the beast recognized. It roared again, but this time not with hunger. With fear, Jace fired first. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't care about the odds. He only knew he had one mission, now protect the girl who gave him her trust and defy the war that demanded her death. Together, they fought like they had always been one. The monster's scream echoed through the stone chamber as Kale's bondstone released a blinding pulse. For a moment, the creature paused. Its glowing orange eyes flickered with uncertainty, recognizing something older than its instinct to kill. Jace stepped forward without hesitation. His rifle lit up with blue plasma as he fired shot after shot into the beast's armored hide. Sparks flew, but it wasn't enough. The creature lunged, and the bunker shook under its massive weight. Dust fell from the ceiling, but the floor held. Kale stood behind him, her arms trembling. The pistol he gave her felt like a feather compared to her usual weapon, but she raised it anyway. She aimed for the creature's left eye, took one breath, and fired. The shot struck true, and the beast staggered. Jace used the opening. He rolled beneath its flailing arm and pulled a detonation charge from his belt. He slammed it against the monster's lower joint and shouted, "Back now!" Kale dropped to her knees behind a steel support pillar. The explosion tore through the creature's leg with a sharp blast of flame and pressure. The beast screamed and collapsed sideways, crashing into the far wall with a roar of anger and pain. Jace climbed to his feet, chest heaving. His arm was bruised. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. He glanced at Kale, who was staring at him like she'd never seen a human before. "You're insane," she said, half breathless. He smirked. "I get that a lot." But they both knew the fight wasn't over. The creature wasn't dead. Just stunned, and more would come soon. The signal from the bondstone was like a flare in the dark. Every war beast within miles would be coming for them. Kale limped over to him, holding her side. Her blood was still leaking through the quick seal foam. She touched his shoulder gently and said, "We can't stay. The tunnels below may lead to the outer cliffs. If we reach high ground, I can activate the emergency beacon from my vambrace." Jace nodded. He checked his ammo, then took her hand and guided her to the maintenance hatch near the back wall. He pried it open, revealing a steep spiral of metal stairs that creaked with every step. Below was total darkness, but Kale's crystal pulsed softly, casting a blue light over the steel walls. They descended in silence. Each step echoed like a warning. Kale stumbled twice, but Jace never let go of her arm. At the bottom of the tunnel, a long horizontal shaft led to a collapsed section of the mountain. But through a narrow crack, sunlight was breaking in. Jace squeezed through first, then reached back to pull Kale after him. Outside, the wind howled across a high cliff edge. Below them stretched the black forest of Criven 9, filled with dangers both natural and artificial. But for now, they had sky above them and space to breathe. Kale collapsed onto the rocky ledge. "We're alive," she said, as if trying to believe it herself. "Barely," Jace replied. She tapped her vambrace, and a bright green beacon shot upward into the air, blinking steadily. "They'll come for me now. Either my people or yours. One will arrive first. And whichever it is, the other will not be pleased." Jace looked into the distance. "I don't care who shows up. They'll know why I stayed. They'll know I didn't let you die for a rulebook written by men who've never fought a real battle." Kale didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her armor and pulled out a second shard. It shimmered with a pale red glow. "This is my mark. If I give it to you, it means I acknowledge you as more than Bladekin. It means I recognize you as a war-bonded." Jace frowned. "What does that mean for us?" "It means you are one of us now. My fate is tied to yours. If my father lives, he will try to kill you. If he's dead, the council will expect you to take his place beside me." He stared at the shard. For a long moment. "You sure about this?" She nodded once. "You carried me when I could not walk. You fought for me when I had no strength. That is more than any of my warriors have ever done." He took the shard slowly and placed it beside the blue bondstone in his armor pouch. "Then we better survive the next fight." Far off in the distance, a sound rolled through the air. Not a roar, not a storm, but the approach of aircraft. Jace pulled out his visor and zoomed in. 2 crafts, one from Earthside, one from the Dalkari fleet, both racing toward them from opposite directions. He sighed and looked at Kale. "Looks like your people and mine are both coming." She stood tall, despite her pain, and replied, "Then let them come." The sky split open as the 2 aircraft drew closer. One bore the sharp insignia of Earth Command, blue and silver wings painted across the hull. The other glowed red, the mark of the Dalkari warlord crest carved in gold over black steel. Both moved fast. Both came with intent. Jace raised his rifle instinctively, standing in front of Kale. He didn't know who would fire first. The beacon from her vambrace was still flashing above them, like a signal fire no one could ignore. He checked his armor systems and locked in targeting, just in case. Kale touched his arm. "Lower it." If they see you aiming, they will fire without warning. He hesitated, then slowly dropped the rifle to his side. The crafts began their descent, but it was the Dalkari ship that landed first. It opened with a sharp hiss, and 6 armored guards stepped out, their weapons drawn. Behind them came a tall figure in red and gold, Kale's brother, Prince Virak. His gaze locked onto Kale, his lips curled in disgust. "You live." "I do," she said, her voice calm and unshaken. "You were ordered to fall with honor." Virak growled. "You shamed our name by surviving. Worse, you allowed a human to carry you." "I didn't allow it. He chose to. I didn't command him to disobey your code. He did it because I was dying." Virak's eyes turned to Jace. "And what does he expect now? A reward? A seat beside you on the battlefield? He is not one of us." Jace stepped forward without flinching. "I don't want a seat. I want her safe. That's all." Kale moved beside him. "He holds my bondstone. He holds my mark. By law, he is one of us now," Virak snarled. "You gave him both? You dishonor Father's legacy. I honor his." "Memory more than you ever did," Kale said. Before the argument could go further, the Earth Command craft landed. Its side doors opened, and 3 officers stepped out, followed by a squad of armored Marines. Commander Hale, Jace's direct superior, walked ahead of the group with a face like stone. "What the hell happened here, Thorn?" Hale demanded. "I followed my instincts," Jace answered. "I saved someone worth saving. If that breaks protocol, I accept the consequences." Hale's gaze shifted to Kale. "You understand what this means, don't you? You've created a diplomatic firestorm. We were trying to avoid conflict with the Dalkari Empire. Now you're bonded to their warlords." "Daughter, I didn't do it for politics," Jace said. Hale didn't reply. Instead, he turned to Virak. "Earth has no claim over her. She belongs to your house. If you want her, take her. But we take our soldier home. No negotiations," Virak smirked. "Agreed. We don't want your soldier. We want what's ours." Kale shook her head. "I'm not going with you. The moment I step aboard your ship, I'll be executed to clean your disgrace. I've chosen my side. You are Dalkari," Virak hissed. "There is no choice." Jace stepped forward. "You'll have to go through me first," Hale raised a hand. "Thorn, stand down," but Kale already moved. She pulled the red shard from Jace's chest pouch and raised it high. "I invoke the right of trial. If he defeats you in combat, his place beside me is sealed by Dalkari law." Virak blinked. "You would risk everything on this creature. He's already proven more honor than you have in a lifetime," Kale said. Jace looked at her confused. "What's the right of trial?" he whispered. "You fight, you win. Or you die." "There's no middle ground," she replied. Jace looked at the 2 sides, Earth soldiers on one side, Dalkari warriors on the other. He could walk away, no one would blame him. But he didn't. He stepped forward and said, "I accept." The circle was drawn in the dirt, a space of 10 paces. No guns, no armor enhancements, just blades. Virak tossed one at Jace's feet. Jace picked it up. The handle was heavier than anything he trained with, but he didn't hesitate. The duel began with Virak striking first. His speed was brutal. His strength came from years of training. But Jace had something else. He had purpose. He had something to protect. Their blades clashed again and again. Virak's swings were sharp and deadly, but Jace dodged with instinct. He remembered his drills. He remembered the rhythm. He waited for the right moment. It came when Virak lifted his blade high for a killing blow. Jace rolled under it and slashed across his thigh. Virak roared and stumbled. Jace didn't stop. He struck again, this time across the ribs, then the shoulder. Then the final strike to knock him off balance. Virak fell to his knees, his blade clattering to the ground. Jace pointed his sword at Virak's chest but did not finish him. "I don't need to kill you to prove I'm worthy," Jace said. Virak looked up in shame. The silence from both sides said everything. Kale stepped forward and stood beside Jace. Her voice was clear. He is my war bond. My shield, my choice. Virak remained kneeling, eyes cast down, his hand bleeding into the soil. Around him, the Dalkari warriors stood frozen, unsure whether to raise their weapons or lower their heads. Jace kept his blade steady, not out of pride, but because the moment demanded it. He had never fought for glory. He never expected to win. But now, standing over the prince of a warrior empire, he knew everything had changed. Kale stepped forward and placed her hand on Jace's shoulder. The rite is complete. By blood, trial, and witness you are mine. Commander Holly watched in disbelief. Are you saying you're claiming him under your law? That he belongs to your side now? Kale turned her eyes toward Earth's officers. I'm not taking him. He came freely. And he stays with me by choice. Jace nodded once. I don't belong to either empire. I stand with her because she stood alone. No one else did. Virak pushed himself to his feet. His pride was wounded. More than his body. He gave Jace a hard look, but he didn't raise his blade again. The law is the law. I have no more words. He turned and walked back to his ship. His warriors followed in silence. No one shouted. No one challenged. The prince had lost, and honor demanded he accept it. Kale watched her brother disappear into the transport. He'll return, not today, but someday. He won't forget this. Wouldn't expect him to, Jace said. Commander Hale walked over slowly. You really know how to turn a recon mission into a historical crisis, Thorn. Jace smiled faintly. Sorry, sir. Hale sighed and looked up at the blinking beacon still pulsing above the cliff. You realize what you've done? Earth won't support this. We'll be forced to pull back. Politicians won't risk war over one soldier. I'm not asking anyone to risk war, Jace replied. I'm asking you to let me finish what I started. Kale turned to Hale. He's not your soldier anymore. He carries my bond. In our law, that's sacred. It's more binding than your ranks or medals. If you try to take him back, you'll break ancient law and invite real war. Holly rubbed the bridge of his nose. You two are really making my job difficult. Just leave us here, Jace said. Let Earth say I died during the mission. Let them mourn me if they want. But don't drag more people into this. Holly stared at him for a long time. Then without a word, he nodded. He turned around and ordered his team back to the transport. Engines roared as the Earth ship rose into the sky, shrinking into the distance until it vanished beyond the clouds. Only wind and silence remained between them. Kale sat on a rock, exhausted. Her wounds were healing, but her strength was low. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sun touch her face. You've given up everything. Why? Jace crouched beside her. Because you didn't ask me to. That's what made it worth doing. She looked at him and nodded. No more questions were needed. They stayed on the cliff for hours, watching the skies. No more ships came. No more soldiers. Just wind and the strange stillness of a world that had almost swallowed them. At nightfall, Kale lit a small signal fire from her vambrace. Its flame shimmered with coated light, an old Dalkari signal meant only for hidden allies. Jace stayed close, his weapon always within reach. He didn't trust the quiet. It was never quiet this long on Criven 9. By morning, the clouds shifted. And a new ship appeared, smaller, sleek, no colors or war marks. It landed without noise. The ramp dropped, and a lone figure stepped out. She was tall, robed, and wore no armor. Her face was hidden behind a silver veil. Kale rose immediately. That's one of the elders. I didn't think they still walked among us. The elder walked toward them and stopped 3 paces away. Her voice was calm and musical. You carry the bondstone, and you carry her mark. You've changed the order of things. Jace stood beside. Kale, is that a problem? The elder tilted her head. It's an opportunity. The warlord is dead. The throne is open. But without blood and steel, it cannot be claimed. Unless one offers a new path. Kale lowered her head. I have no army, no followers. The elder raised a hand. You have one. And the heart of one is stronger than the blind loyalty of thousands. Kale looked at Jace. Do you trust me? Always, he said. The elder turned away. Then come, a trial awaits. Not of blade, not of war, but of choice. Let's see. If a new legend can be born without a single shot. Asterisk. The elder's ship glided over the black forest of Criven 9, silent as moonlight. Inside, Kale sat across from Jace in a chamber lined with glowing glyphs. Neither spoke. There was weight in the silence. Something ancient and sacred hung in the air. The elder stood near the front, hands folded, her veil untouched by the slight. Of the ship. You will not be tested with weapons, she said. The Dalkari throne does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to the one who can command without fear. Jace looked at Kale. You're not afraid, are you? She shook her head. Not of them. Only of failing you. Jace smiled slightly. Then don't. We're in this together. The ship touched down on a platform high in the mountain clouds. Below them, 1,000 lights shimmered from ancient towers carved into the rock. This was the Hall of Trials. Not many had seen it. Fewer had walked out as rulers. As they stepped out, a horn echoed through the sky. It wasn't loud, but it carried power. From the towers came cloaked figures, elders, warriors, seers, and witnesses. They formed a circle around the platform. No one spoke. All waited. Kale walked to the center and stood tall. Jace followed, standing just behind her. The elder joined them and raised one hand. Today we break with tradition. Today, a Dalkari returns not with conquest, but with mercy. She brings no army, only a bond. And a human. There was murmuring. A few elders exchanged cold glances. One stepped forward. He had white markings along his skin and golden eyes like burning coals. This bond is unnatural. She was supposed to die in battle. Her bloodline should have ended. Kale's voice was clear. I did not ask to live. I was carried by one who did not see me as an enemy. He chose to protect me, even when it meant betrayal of his own command. I offer no apologies. Only truth. Jace took a step forward. I don't claim to understand your laws, but I saw someone worth saving, so I saved her. I won't pretend to be your hero. I'm just the man who didn't leave her behind. A different elder, older and wrapped in red silk, looked at them both. You carry the mark and the stone. The bond is true. But can you rule a people who see you as broken? Kale did not flinch. I will not rule by fear. I will lead by vow. One of us bled for the other. One of us fought while dying. If that's weakness, then we are guilty. Another elder rose. Her voice was like wind scraping stone. If she wishes the throne, she must sit upon the judgment seat. But if her heart breaks under it, she will be erased. Her bond will be erased. Even the human beside her will be forgotten. I accept, Kale said at once. Jace touched her arm. You're sure? She looked at him with calm eyes. If I don't try, I'll never deserve what you gave me. The circle opened, revealing a stair carved into the clouds. At the top stood the seat, a black throne etched with symbols that burned faintly. No one had sat there since the warlord's death. To do so meant offering your entire soul to the judgment of the ancestors. Kale walked alone. Jace stood back, watching her ascend with fire in his chest. She didn't stumble. She didn't slow. She reached the seat and sat with her hands resting on her knees. A gust of wind swept through the hall and the sky darkened. Lightning flashed behind the throne. A sound like distant drums rumbled through the mountain. The glyphs beneath Kale's feet lit up one by one. Her eyes closed, and her breath slowed. Her body stiffened, and for a moment, she looked like stone. Jace clenched his fists. The elders watched in silence. Time passed like a knife through ice. Then Kale opened her eyes. Her voice echoed with something more than her own soul. I have seen the end of war. I have felt the weight of command. I do not run. I do not hide. I speak now for a future worth dying for. The light behind her flared bright. The throne glowed gold. The wind stopped. The air was still. One by one, the elders bowed their heads. The oldest one spoke again. She is chosen. Let her name be carried in the stones. Let her bond be recognized. The throne is no longer empty. Jace stepped forward as Kale stood. Her legs trembled, but her face was calm. When he reached her side, she took his hand and didn't let go. The elder turned to them both. You are now part of our legacy. And legacy does not forget. The sun rose behind the throne, casting golden rays over the mountain city of the Dalkari. Kale stood before the gathered warriors and elders, the bondstone glowing at her chest. She was no longer just a survivor. She was now the rightful heir. Jace stood beside her in silence. He wore no armor, no medals. Just the sash Kale had tied around his shoulder. It marked him as her war bond, her equal in this journey. Some in the crowd still looked at him with doubt, but none dared speak against. The throne. Kale lifted her hand. Today is not a day of celebration. It is a day of choosing. The war that took my father's life still burns on other worlds, but I will not rule through more fire. I will rule with memory. I will honor his strength but walk a different path. An elder stepped forward. And what of the human? Will he remain? Our people may kneel to you, but not to one outside our blood. Jace stepped into the circle. His voice was steady. I never asked to be a ruler. I only asked to be her shield. If that's not enough, then I'll leave now and never return. Kale placed her hand over his. If he leaves, I go with him. You may question my strength, but you will not question my loyalty. Another voice rose from the side. It was one of the younger Dalkari captains. Let him speak. Let him show why she trusts him. A leader's bond is also a mirror. Kale nodded to Jace. He stepped forward and faced the crowd. I'm not Dalkari. I won't pretend to understand all your customs. But I know what I've seen. I saw a people willing to die for pride, even when peace was possible. I saw warriors who thought pain was the only way to earn respect. He turned slowly, his eyes meeting theirs. But then I saw her, wounded, alone, refused by her own. And still, she didn't give up. She didn't cry for help. She stood. And when I picked her up, she didn't curse me. She looked at me like I was the first person who ever saw her as more than a soldier. Silence filled the mountain air. The crowd didn't speak. They listened. Jace continued. If that's weakness, then you've misunderstood strength. If saving a life is failure, then I failed proudly. And if standing beside her means exile, then I'll walk away right now. Kale's grip tightened around his hand. No one is walking away, she said. The elders conferred quietly. Then the oldest among them raised his hand. The war bond is true. The throne accepts him. Let the trials end. Let the judgment stand. A wave of relief moved through the crowd. Kale turned to Jace and smiled, not the smile of a ruler, but of someone who knew she didn't have to carry the world alone anymore. They spent the night in the throne chamber, watching the stars shift through the transparent dome above. Kale removed her armor piece by piece, her body still marked by battle scars. Jace sat beside her, their shoulders touching. You still think this was the right thing to do? She asked quietly. I don't know, Jace replied. But I know I'd do it again. She leaned her head against his. That I know I chose the right one. A soft knock came at the chamber door. A messenger entered, kneeling low. Forgive the hour, my lady. Word has reached the outer moons. The Southern Lords have rejected your ascension. They call it heresy. They prepare to march. Kale rose slowly. Then send a message in return. Tell them I will meet them. Not with fire, not with threats, but with the truth. The messenger hesitated. And if they do not listen? Jace stood beside her. Then they'll listen to me. Kale nodded. Prepare my ship. I won't rule from a throne. I'll rule where the people can see me. The elder, who had watched them since the beginning, entered the chamber as the messenger left. She bowed slightly. You remind me of your father, Kale, but your path is your own. And now it belongs to more than just your people. Kale bowed in return. Then I will walk it with both hands open and both feet steady. Jace placed the bondstone in its resting place beside the throne, leaving behind the token, but not the promise. As they walked toward the docking bay, side by side under the starlit sky, their steps echoed in rhythm not of royalty and soldier, but of two souls who stood when no one else would. The ship soared above the dark canyons of the southern moons, silent but strong. Kale stood at the viewing window, watching the jagged terrain below. Jace stood beside her, a hand resting on the edge of the steel frame. The message from the Southern Lords had been clear. Her rule was not welcome. They had branded her as weak, a ruler touched by human ideals. To them, she was a disgrace to Delcari pride. And yet, Kale did not send warships in reply. She brought herself. She brought Jace. And she brought the truth. The landing site was an ancient war court, a circle of black stone marked with the symbols of old battles. When Kale stepped onto the platform, she was met with rows of warriors in dark red armor, blades drawn but lowered. Their leader stood ahead, a broad, stern male named Terran. He spoke without ceremony. You come with no guard, no weapons, no command. Why? Kale answered with no fear. Because I came to remind you who we are, not what we were turned into by pride. Terran scowled. We do not kneel to weakness. We do not bend to outsiders. Jay stepped forward. Then, don't kneel, just listen. That's all we ask. A murmur passed through the crowd. No one moved to stop him. Karen studied him closely. You are the human who carries her mark, the one who defied your orders to protect her. I am, Jay said simply. Karen narrowed his eyes. You should not be here. And yet, you are. What does that say about us? Kale lifted her voice. It says you still have something left inside worth saving. It says you remember the old code. Not the one soaked in blood, but the one that protected the weak, honored the brave, and stood for more than conquest. Karen's silence grew heavy. The other warriors began shifting, uncertain. No one raised a blade. No one shouted. Kale stepped closer. You want strength? I bled in the dust of Criven 9. I sat on the judgment seat. I faced my own brother in ritual combat. I did not do it for glory. I did it for a future where strength does not mean cruelty. Jace raised his voice beside her. I watched her suffer. I carried her through fire. I fought her enemies when even her allies turned their backs. I'm not Dalkari. I'm not royalty. But I believe in her. And I believe in a people who can rise beyond their past. Karen stepped forward slowly. His armor creaked, and every eye turned to him. He drew his blade, not to threaten, but to kneel, pressing its tip into the stone. Then let the South remember what it means to follow a true ruler. I give you my blade. And my loyalty. One. By one, others followed. Blades lowered, knees bent. Not out of fear, but respect. Not for power, but for honor. Kale stood tall. Her voice was steady. Then we begin again. Not as conquerors, not as ghosts of the past, but as something better. Jace looked out over the warriors and knew this was no longer about just saving her. This was about saving everything she believed in. That night, the fires of war did not burn. Instead, torches lit the skies in a silent vow of unity. Songs once sung for fallen heroes were raised again, but this time for the living. Kale and Jace stood by the flames, surrounded by those who had once doubted them. She turned to him and asked softly, "Did you ever think this would be the ending?" "No," he said. "But I hoped for it." She smiled and placed her forehead against his. "You carried me through death. I will carry you through life." They stood together as the new day broke. Two souls bonded not by duty, but by choice. Not by law, but by loyalty. A human who refused to obey a dying order. An alien girl who dared to rule with heart. From that day, the story of the human and the warlord's daughter was told across systems. Not as a tale of rebellion, but as the beginning of a legend. A legend of a man who refused to drop her when all others turned away. A legend of a ruler who changed her people without drawing another blade. And a legend of a bond that proved even across stars. Trust can rewrite destiny.